Hey, guess what, White Sox fans? After one false start, we are back with Southside Sox Mothership Podcast number 128. Tommy Barbee, Father Soxivus, has shown up in spite of the fact that this is not a Soxivus podcast. Tricked him, got him. He's feels in for like good now. Yeah, it does.
It feels like it.
Grievances Revisited here on podcast number 128. A cast of thousands here to show up. And, well, I don't know. I guess this is going to be a group counseling. What was that that's Sam Sherman did for us? I don't know, mood lifting, whatever that was. Counseling session. I guess this will double as a counseling session. During this podcast, we will answer questions like who is Pedro Grifol? Are all people born in 1969 super cool? Why are the White Sox? Who are the White Sox? Why are we White Sox fans? What in the world is going on? I'm sure a few of the guests here sitting around the round table will be a little bit more pro Pedro and some might be a little more anti. Oh, we'll take all opinions. And first, let's start off. As a means of introduction, I'm going to just go around super quick reaction from each of you to what in the world just happened today. I'm going to start to my upper left on at least my Brady grid, and that is Melissa Sage-Bollenbach. Please, Melissa, this is a tough call because, as we know, the cup can be a little half empty, and I'm starting off with you, Melissa. Your instant reaction to Pedro.
I mean, I wasn't born in 1969, but 1972, so it's close enough. Meh was my reaction. Meh is kind of still my reaction. Yeah. I don't know. I keep going back and forth. I read something and then I read something else and then I think about it. And so right now I'm riding the middle. I'm riding the middle.
Okay. All right. So the cup really is sort of half empty and half full. Okay, that's fine. All right. First time returning champion, first time player. I'm not sure what he is, but Brian O'Neill chooses the Pedro Grifol hiring podcast to hop on and chat. Brian O'Neill, welcome, and instant reaction to this hiring.
I wasn't filled with blinding rage when it happened, and I expected that to be the outcome of whatever they hired. So I was initially optimistic. But, kind of like Melissa was saying, there's some things that you read and you're like, maybe not. And other things you read where you think this is really exciting. But I kind of realized like everything I read that he was saying made me happy. The things that made me think, oh, maybe not, are other people's analysis of the hire. So just based on what I know about him, which is barely even how to pronounce his last name, but quotes that I've read today, I like the guy. He seems like he's the right guy, or maybe not the right guy, but he's not absolutely the wrong guy either. So that's it's a benefit.
There's a lot of it. There's a lot of that going around. So relative scale of happiness.
But, yeah.
Jordan Haas, please. Instant reaction to this hiring of the new White Sox manager.
It's not Ozzy. It's not someone involved with this organization in any way and has never been. So you know what, Rick Hahn, you're less of a coward than I said you were the other day. However, I mean, I think it's okay. I think it's okay. I think he's got a good chance to vibe well with this team. He is bilingual. He is Cuban American. I think he's got a good chance to really connect with these guys. Whether or not that'll mean anything, whether or not it'll transmit to anything, depends on whether or not Rick Hahn actually does anything in the offseason. So
listen, I told Vox, I told SB Nation, hard cider or hard alcohol in the green room, not Kool-Aid. Tommy Barbee, please tell me your reaction to the Pedro Grifol hiring.
Melissa said it best. Meh. I mean, it doesn't feel good taking the Kansas City Royals leftovers that they didn't even want, but it could have been worse. So, meh.
This podcast is kicking ass. Allie Wesel, please give me your variation on the meh reaction that you had to this new hiring.
As long as there's no DUI arresting a couple days after the announcement, I think I'll be okay. He seems like a likable guy. Like, I listened to that podcast, I think that was shared in the Slack earlier today. Like, he sounds like he knows what he's talking about. And he's younger, which was one of like my criteria that I wanted to see, was someone that was below the age of 60. So yeah, I mean, I don't hate it. I think I stand in the same boat as a lot of people saying that like this hiring means nothing until we start playing baseball. So.
All right. Allie Wesel just called a fellow 1969 baby younger. So you have moved to number one in the queue on this podcast. God bless you, Allie. Okay, I gave Dante a chance to catch his breath. Oh, you don't even want to know about the adventure he's taking to get to this podcast. So please, words of wisdom, Dante Jones on the hiring of Pedro Grifol.
My first reaction was, who? Like, who is this man? And then, I was like, okay, rules. Then I won someone from a championship organization and they won one a minute ago. So, I guess. And then I talked to some Royals fans and they was like, yeah, we wanted him as manager when they hired Matheny. So we get why they went outside the organization, but we want him. So, it's like, I'm not gonna be optimistic about it. I'm like, okay, good job. Like Ali said, we gotta see the baseball before I start judging.
Okay, another punt. That's fair. Dante, continue to catch your breath. Super Joseph Resis, I need your reaction to the Pedro Grifol hiring by the Chicago White Sox next manager.
I'm happy to give him a chance. I mean, yeah, there's nothing overly exciting about this choice, but I mean, like the White Sox have reminded me of 2020 as a whole, in that there were just so many unlikely things happening that year, most of them very bad things. And it got to a point where when November rolled around and the college basketball season got started almost on time, like I was surprised that they were able to have like a pretty normal college basketball season. Like it wasn't like, the delayed 60-game MLB regular season or like the Disney World bubble that the NBA had. Like the college basketball season that started that fall was pretty normal. And that was surprising to me. Similarly, I was pleasantly surprised when the White Sox did the bare minimum and didn't just hire Ozzie. Like I really was concerned that they were going to do that, and they didn't. So I mean, they cleared the very low bar, and I am at least thankful for that. So yeah, I'm okay with this hire, and I will happy to give him a chance.
Joe, your puzzling extended metaphor betrays your confidence in this hiring. However, I will take you at your word, and I'll take all of you at your words. Minus reaction when I crawled out of my cave at the normal 3:30 time after staying up all night doing whatever nonsense for this site was this is bullshit hire, and we'll get to that at some point. Okay. I wrote down a note about how did this happen, and I don't really know what I'm meaning to ask you, so I'm going to just skip to my next point, and maybe we'll come back to that. It's been a long day. I want to know who wanted him. We've heard that this was like the consensus among the front office. And the front office, for these purposes, I would assume to be Jerry Reinsdorf, owner, Ken Williams on his way to retirement, and Rick Hahn, quote unquote, general manager. I'm guessing those are the three votes, though Tony La Russa plays a role in this. I can't imagine he plays an actual voting role. Plus, Lord knows if it's the White Sox, they would just tie 2-2 on everybody and never hire a manager at all. Ozzie had a lot of fire, and it wasn't contrary to our cynicism. I don't think it was just because he was putting it out there. I do think he was getting serious consideration. I'm curious about how everyone thinks this broke down. You're free to just jump in here. I can see in my mind, I can see Jerry Reinsdorf saying, you know what? I need money. I always need money. And Ozzie, given the list that was in front of him, let's say there were 10 candidates, 5 candidates, how many were really left? I could see him actually voting somewhat full-throated for Ozzie. I could see Ken Williams, despite their troubles, I could see him applying some of the same logic. And also, he doesn't mind if the park is burned to the ground. He's leaving soon. Rick Hahn, I can see putting Ozzie at the bottom. And so in some weird way, I could see Pedro Grifol being like sort of the consensus number 2, who ends up getting the job. how do any of you imagine this playing out? And because it does seem clear to me that I'm not sure from the get-go this was the first choice, even though from the minute we heard this name, we're like, what in the world is this guy? How can he even be on the list? So somebody really liked him. How do you think it played out?
Yeah, I wrote in the article today, I think this was a backup plan. Like, I think Joe Espada was off the table. I think Quattraro from was taken off the table. And I think like this ended up being like the best last choice that they had. And like when you compare Ozzie versus Grifol, I think like Grifol like has the leg up in the sense of it delivers on the things that Rick Hahn, on some of the things that Rick Hahn said he was going to do when he went out to go get a manager, in terms of like someone outside the organization. That's the only box it really checks. But I think ultimately, like if I had to imagine what happened, like you said, I can imagine Jerry and Kenny saying, fine, whatever, like bring back Ozzie. But I think like, I think ultimately like Rick was like, I have to do at least one portion of what I said I was going to do. And like, that was the solution. And I don't it doesn't look bad on paper either. So I think it works itself out.
I think that's a great point. And I think Jerry is always willing to do the bare minimum to keep his lackeys happy and in line. Like, yeah, he would love to make that final decision, but I'm sure, you know, as Ellie was saying, you know, Hahn was like, I put my word on the line here, you know, don't make me look bad. I maybe even tried to walk. I don't know. That seems a bridge too far, but as small as that footfall might have been, even if he put his foot down a little bit, Jerry would have been like, all right, I can give you this so that I have a loyal guy in line for perpetuity.
And if this last Jerry hire of Tony La Russa hadn't gone so disastrously, if this was, say, we're coming off of Ozzie, I could see a little bit less willingness to yield from Jerry. I'm guessing his vote was like, of course he's got the vote, but I'm guessing it's maybe italicized because it's like, well, I mean, really, how full-throated can he be? Because like, look what you just did to us, guys. Other thoughts about how this may have played out?
I remember some source was saying that Kevin Long was the consensus option. So I think it's even worse than that, to be honest. I think it was they came to a consensus of, okay, we're not gonna hire Ozzie, Jerry. I think if anything, Kenny and Rick outvoted Jerry for once on bringing back Ozzie. But he definitely seems like a really low option, like a low, like bottom rung of the ladder kind of option. Maybe it was that they're like, okay, Long and Espada have been to the World Series now. Espada several times, I think now, and so they might be too much money. It might have been, I think it's a money thing, to be honest. I think it's Jerry thought he could get Ozzie for cheap, and then Ozzie might have cost too much money. And they're like, well, this guy from the Royals, he's probably not going to cost that much money because he's coming from the fucking Royals.
Yeah.
So,
and
Ozzie
they don't want him.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Ozzie didn't like the clause that said, okay, the amount we pay you also has to include the amount of fines we're going to have to pay on your behalf. He just wasn't, they didn't see eye to eye there, you know. So other thoughts on how this may have played out?
I think it may have significantly due to control. I think that we know Ozzie doesn't really care what people say or think or tell him. He does his own thing. And I think that Pedro, probably from Rick and Kenny and Jerry's perspective, seemed a lot more able to be manipulated into kind of following their agenda and their demands and their lineups and what have you. So I kind of think that might have played into it a little bit.
Okay, let's continue to have this discussion. Okay, go ahead. Tommy, is that you?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think that is the box that Rick Hahn didn't publicly say that was the number one box to check for him, is that he needed somebody that he could have no conflict with, no ego, no competition. And I think that's really what was the driving force behind it, because a lot of the guys that they were looking at being bench coaches, first base coaches, minor league managers, those are guys that ideally are just happy to have a job and they will do whatever the GM asks of them to do. And that's what Rick Hahn needs to stroke his ego. He
Yes.
went through the whole Tony La Russa experience where if Rick tried to do something that Tony didn't like, Tony would just talk to Jerry and he was overruled. So I really do think that the control was a major factor, as well as the money, where, you know, for a guy like Espada, he has a cushy job and there is no reason for him to leave unless the Sox are willing to pay up, and they weren't.
Let's continue this discussion. I'm going to add a little different wrinkle. Tommy just hit it. Melissa hit it a little bit. I'm not going to speak for Melissa, but you know, us Generation Xers, you know, we're like me, like Pedro Grifol, we're shoegazers. We can tend to bring the room down a little bit. Let me bring the room down a little bit, because friends, Rick Hahn is our White Sox manager. Discuss. Yes, Rick Hahn wants control. Rick Hahn's going to get control. Of course, Pedro's he's not going to be a pushover. He's the manager and he can do little things to undermine. Lord knows Ozzy found ways, myriad ways to undermine the front office. But I believe this was contingent. You know, Rick had, whether it's a sidebar discussion or did it right in front of Ken and Jerry and put these questions pointedly. If I give you a lineup suggestion, if I tell you no IL, what's the response going to be? You know, there are some real life things, and you know, Pedro wanted the gig, or is just an amenable dude, or he's getting in his shoes, whatever, and was cool with it. So, hey, friends at Southside Sox, what do you think about Rick Hahn as manager of the Chicago White Sox?
That sounds miserable.
I'm happy to help.
Like Rick Hahn, man. We've all talked ad nauseum about the job Rick Hahn has done as general manager. At least I don't have to look at Rick Hahn on a regular basis. But Rick Hahn manager, I would have to see regularly when he just fucks up any little thing he fucks up. Because I don't like, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but if it was Rick Hahn or Tony La Russa as manager, I'm taking Tony every single time. I don't think Rick Hahn just has not done much at all for me to say that he is good at anything. Like Rick Hahn, like I remember parts of Kenny's like tenure as the main GM, but I'm also like, I was born in 96, so I don't remember everything. Rick Hahn's entire tenure, I remember, and it's just been thing I've disliked after thing I've disliked. So I don't see any, like, besides a little thing here and there, and looking into some, like, having really good luck. There's not much to make me think, oh, Rick Hahn as manager, that works.
Because I'm subject also to wild mood swings as a member of Pedro's generation, I am going to defend Rick Hahn in a public forum and say, I venture to say, Dante, Rick Hahn as manager would not call for not one, but one and two intentional walks in any given season. However, other thoughts
This is a
on
very
Rick
good
Hahn, Rick Hahn, general manager.
Rick Hahn's opinion of Rick Hahn is like, would be way too much for that clubhouse. Like the thought of that just makes my skin crawl. Like his opinion of himself is just through the roof, and it always boggles my mind. Like I loop back to if I thought I wasn't the person for this job, I'd step away. And so like the thought of that energy entering a dugout, oh God.
Allie, you forgot the way worse quote of, you know, our front office was in talks for executive of the year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'm just waiting
1 year
for
ago.
the sales pitch when it finally gets announced of, and championship experience was an important part of the selection, you know, because Pedro was the catching coach.
He was on the field when they won the World Series.
Mhm. He was providing translating services.
There you go. I think, you know, the only silver lining to all of this for me is that it accelerates the timeline in which Rick Hahn gets fired, because there is nothing for him to hide behind with this hire. I'm sure he'll find something, because he always does.
Yeah.
But there's nothing realistically for him to hide behind
No.
right now.
He's going to blame the lack of championship experience.
Yeah. He's like, I just trusted his resume. I didn't really bother to figure out that he was just like the bullpen coach for that team,
Like,
or whatever.
He just figured, he was on the team. Oh wait, he was the guy that got water for everybody every fifth inning or so. Okay, cool. I guess that counts.
It seems
Yeah, go
boring,
ahead. Sorry.
Day-to-day managing. I mean, I know what you're saying, but it seems way too much work for him to do that every day, to really get into the nitty-gritty of the daily lineups. I think he'll dictate more big picture stuff, and I think, yeah, the IL he'll be in charge of, but I don't know. Maybe I'm being optimistic and hoping that he's not going to be cautious enough to be involved all the time. I don't know.
Okay, let me throw this. Go
Go ahead, Brett. Yeah,
Let me
I was
throw
just
out this. I'm going to shut up.
no,
just
it's
dance
just I was
Pedro.
just going to say it's more common now than it used to be, and I think about
Okay.
all the the stuff that's come out with Joe Madden talking
Yes,
about the
That's what I was
Angels
going to say.
fallout,
So we're on the same wavelength.
where that's very common for GMs to have a sheet of here's who's pitching, here's your lineup, and it can be as detailed as this is when I want you to pitch them to just here's your schedule of players that you can use for the week. Given how Rick Hahn has mismanaged the IL recently, it wouldn't surprise me that he's been trying to do something similar.
Which, based on what you just said about the IL, given that ultimately that is his call, that's not a Tony La Russa call,
Right.
Means this toboggan ride is going to crash at the bottom of the hill. Yeah, I mean, if you're to believe Madden, I mean, I don't mind to misread this, but I mean, to the point where there was some front office personnel, even like in the clubhouse. So
Yeah.
this is the trend, and I'm going to guess pretty clearly this is a big question for Hahn and why Grifol got selected. And that is that, yeah, he's amenable enough to it. And it's like sort of anything to get. Here's his shot. If the Royals weren't going to take him, I'm not sure where the shot was coming. He's not an old guy. Of course, he's not an old guy, Allie. But he's not how many more rounds of interviews he's going to get through, and he can't keep milking the the World Series he was part of from 25 years ago. So I mean, this was a shot to say, all right, any means to get in, and then who knows if there's some success, and then maybe can start throwing those elbows. But that's the same thing I was going to bring up, Tommy, and that is, the Madden thing, this trend in the game, and the front offices are winning. I mean, they sign the paychecks. The front offices are probably going to win, and I just wonder what sort of disasters is going to be. Obviously, Rick is not literally going to be Rick in uniform would be awfully interesting, but he's not going to be in uniform poisoning the clubhouse. But you can bet he is going to have a very big imprint, and a Espada, much less a Ozzy. That probably wasn't going to fly. So I think that's why he's our guy.
The one silver lining is the Sox aren't going to hire someone to bring the lineup card down. That's too much money for them. I'm gonna have a go between.
But now we've also lost Jerry Nairn, assumedly, so we're not going to have those very pretty calligraphied lineup cards either. So gives and it takes.
This made me think about when we were talking about in a previous pod about like the idea of Tadahito managing this team. Just made me think about the fact that we call him Gucci, like he was still had a lot of swag. Rick Hahn in a actual uniform will have the least swag of a baseball player to ever exist.
Yeah.
Do they make Teflon uniforms?
We've seen his suits. They are bad. That man has no fashion sense.
But he negotiated a great contract for those suits.
If Tadahito was actually a better player, he would have got the one name treatment like Ichiro, and he would have probably gone by Tadahichio. So I think you were onto something there. Or just let's call him Gucci. Let's call him. I know that's what you want to do, Dante. I got to figure out where to go with this next. Please, other thoughts about what is happening here? Presumably, whether there's any. How about this? Is there any silver lining to Rick Hahn being able to have more say, other than the fact? Frankly, I don't know. I think Tommy's already brought it out. Other than the fact that it's an easier line, it's an easier trip to the unemployment line for Rick Hahn if this doesn't work out. And other silver linings.
Not a Rick Hahn silver lining,
Okay.
but a silver lining is that all of the coaches but Ethan Katz and the assistant guy are gone. So that's a pretty good silver lining. Anything to get rid of Frank Menachino is good in my book.
Also, goodbye, fuck off to Daryl Boston.
Yeah.
Amen to
Daryl.
that. Yeah.
Sorry, Daryl.
I mean, I've talked about this in the Slack. The one coach that I am intrigued by is the fact that Charlie Montoyo is coming on as the bench coach. because I still think he makes a hell of a lot more sense as the manager in this current construction than he does as the bench coach. Maybe that's, somebody's parachute in case things go south, they can throw him in there. But I know it didn't end well with the Blue Jays, but he did a damn good job with that clubhouse and getting those young players up to speed in very short order. And he had the same type of resume as some of the hot managers that we're talking about now 2-3 years ago. So I really think that, as intrigued as one can be by a bench coach, I am intrigued by Charlie Montoyo with the White Sox.
Okay, and let me pause you there as we continue this free-form discussion about what's going on and how ridiculous this process has been, and how the host of this podcast calls the whole thing bullshit. And there's other people who are probably with me, and others are saying, hey man, come on, give it a break. What, we don't even know. They're not playing games yet. It's still 2022, jerk, shut up. Cool. But okay, Tommy brought it up. The bench coach is more qualified to be the manager than the manager. The bench coach has taken the bench coach job with whatever, like, a backdoor promise of, well, yeah, you'll be the manager if this guy's a disaster. We end up with the candidate who clearly wasn't as hot as he became, I guess. I don't think he did become a hot candidate, but I mean, he's on the list. He clearly was lower rung candidate. Again, more thoughts about this process, because it does seem to be weirdly stitched together. Continuing on Tommy's thought of having an encouraging Quatraro-esque, certainly a very similar resume to his. As a bench coach, does the bench coach matter? I'm not sure if any of these guys matter, because if we want to say managers don't matter, well, then who cares about the bench coach? But more thoughts about how this is getting stitched together, because it's awfully weird to me. Maybe I'm I got a simple mind, but help me out.
What the hell does a bench coach even do? I've been asking myself that for weeks. I'm like, every time we're talking about a bench coach, I'm like, does the bench coach actually do anything? To be honest, I almost wonder if the Montoyo thing is less of a in speaking on that, I wonder if it's less of a maybe he was a candidate, but he's like, he didn't want to manage, and he's like, I want to be around a good baseball team and help some young good baseball players that he sees something in, but is like vehemently opposed to being any sort of scapegoat like he was for Toronto for a little bit.
So all the hassles of being a manager, but you don't get to be the manager.
So Jordan, the official definition of bench coach per MLB.com's glossary is that they are typically considered the right-hand man to a team's manager. They assist their managers in decision-making and will sometimes relay scouting information from the team's front office to the club's players.
Yeah, a much better definition, and thank you for looking that up.
So he does nothing.
Essentially, it is just a yes man, right? Yeah. It is a guy there, and they're not supposed to be fighting in the dugout. It's pretty much a guy who's like, hey, looks like a good call, Pedro. Yeah, I would have done that too. I mean, you hope that there's going to be some guidance and some mentorship. Certainly, we have a first-time manager here, although Charlie doesn't exactly have a ton under his belt either. But I mean, yeah, it's not any sort of college coach situation. Sorry, Tommy, no college coach type of situation at all. I mean, this is going to be guys who are leaning in the same direction, right? And we speculate maybe even Pedro specifically wanted maybe Charlie hired.
Yeah, I thought it's more like sorry, go ahead.
No, you're fine. I think my Wi-Fi is also going out, but I think too, like, it's on the manager to utilize the bench coach well. So like, if Pedro wants to utilize Montoyo well, then they will work closely together in making decisions.
Yeah, I mean, literally when he's ejected. Go. I'm sorry.
But like Tony didn't use Cairo. I feel like no one even knew Cairo existed. So it's like, I feel like it's a manager by manager situation.
Yeah.
Well, and
it is. Yeah.
The podcast that we're referring to or earlier, where Pedro is being interviewed in 2021, he talked about being a bench coach and what he did, and it sounded like he was actually a very involved bench coach. But then when it came to, like, they were given the example of when the manager had been kicked out, like, what did he do then? And he basically said that the manager was still making all the calls. So he like made no decisions. So it was, yeah, it's very puzzling, I think.
I mean, you do literally have the manager like in the tunnel, like, like whispering out, whatever,
Hey.
you're like sending the messages out there.
No, it's not
Don't have to
I
go
always thought
full.
of it as kind of like an aide de camp, like kind of a wise counsel, someone who you are technically their
Mhm.
boss, but it's not like one of your coaches who you can fire at will. I mean, you kind of can, but they can be a little more honest with you. You can bounce ideas off them, kind of shoot the shit with them a little bit there. Yeah, they serve as someone who's not gunning for your job necessarily, but someone who you can just sort of talk to. And I don't know, maybe that's an overly romantic viewpoint of it, but I always think of like, wasn't Don Zimmer bench coach for after he stopped managing forever? Like just kind of that guy. You'd be like, hey Don, what happened when someone did this in 1914? And be like, oh, you got to do it this way. But maybe a little more recent.
Don, go out there and fight Pedro Martinez.
Yeah,
Right, exactly.
Well, Allie's Wi-Fi is about to blow up, so we are going to choose to take our break here, and maybe Allie will be back with us again. Number one position on the podcast. Hey, Tommy, I believe that podcast everyone's referring to is Believe in Kansas City Royals or something. Imagine if the rumored Believe in Chicago White Sox podcast that got that sort of support from the Believe Company Incorporated. Tommy,
know.
we'd be like rich and famous right now, huh? Oh
Yeah.
well. Okay, let's go from one podcast to another. You're welcome for that promotion, Believe. We're going to take a 1 minute break. We're going to be back. Maybe not going like a full hour here, but we have still some other things to talk about. And I'm sure I've cut enough people off that they still have other thoughts to share. So we're going to do that in just a second. Please stick with us and come back because you're going to learn some stuff, whether you like it or not. Hey, White Sox fans, welcome back. Southside Sox listeners, viewers, readers, White Sox faithful. A weird day. Thank you for spending part of the day after with us and learning all you can about what is a Pedro Grifol, who is a Pedro Grifol, what year was Pedro Grifol born, all the really important questions we're attempting to tackle and answer for you here on Southside Sox Mothership Podcast number 128, squeezing in between our Soxivus celebrations. Believe it or not, again, Tommy just woke up, rolled out of bed. Father Soxivus was like, oh my God, another Soxivus podcast already? All right, I got to show up. And guess what? We fooled him, but he's here. Thank you for being here, Tommy. Thank goodness. His insight, as well as insight of all of you, very much appreciated. Essay question to begin it all. I guess it's not really an essay. I don't know if this is a round table or not. But I do want to know one positive and negative thing that comes out about this hiring. I know a lot of that has probably been addressed in the first half, but personally, I would like to know what your positive and negative coming out of this is. I'm going to reverse Brady order, and I'm going to Jordan Haas to begin with. Haas. See, I'm blowing it again, Jordan, but anyway, it's Jordan's turn to speak. It has been a while. Yeah, please, positive and negative.
Positive. I actually was looking on his Wikipedia in the break, and he was the director of operations of the Mariners minor league system. So I wonder what he can do in terms of some. I don't know if this is like a middle ground, but I wonder what he can do in terms of development for the players at all, or if he was even good with that at all. But I think the positive, like I've already said, is all the other coaches got fired with Ethan Katz, but I don't think that's on Pedro. So it's not Ozzy, and he seems likable. Negative is he's literally not any of the other good coaches that we could have.
Qualifies, legit. Okay, that's a good answer, and you gave us more than one sort of in both cases. Father Soxivus, you're up next. Please, one positive, one negative.
I already said that it makes it easier for Rick Hahn to get fired,
Yes.
so I'll spin it another way.
Okay,
and I'll say that I think that this gives a clearer vision to what Rick Hahn's grand plan is in all of this, which I think is a positive, because I'm tired of the excuses on why he can't do certain things, and he doesn't have any now. So let's see what the Rick Hahn White Sox officially look like.
you're talking about like phase 2 or 3 or 4, because
Or
clearly
whatever version
Ricky,
we're on
okay,
now.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's not as if his hands have been tied for 12 or 20 or whatever years.
In his mind, they were, but
okay, but in
now-
the championship window that
exactly
is maybe Like, is it still open? Another good speed round
yeah.
question. Okay, all right, I'll buy that. I think the judges, they'll allow it. Plus, your father's activist. Nobody's going to challenge you, man. Come on, forget about it.
I didn't say it's a huge positive. It's just like, if he really feels like this is like his opportunity to do something, let's see what happens. And I just appreciate that he doesn't have people that he can blame anymore.
Tommy, I don't think you're necessarily Generation X, but you just scared the hell out of me with that answer. But okay, cool. Did you get in? I mean, that was scary, but did you?
It's a scary positive. I didn't give a negative.
Okay,
I
please
think that,
lay it on me.
I mean, the negative, and you pretty much outlined it, is that the window's closing. So if he doesn't get it right, it's going to be a long, long summer. And I'm telling you, the white flag will be unlike previous white flags if this doesn't hit right.
Yeah. Some big contracts to unload. Brian O'Neill, first time contestant. Oh my God. Talk about a future returning champion. Excellent so far. Thank you for your participation in the first half. Please lay a positive and a negative on me.
The negative, I just think that it's so kind of gloomy. It's not what the fireworks that we were hoping for. It's not the best call. That everything that's going to happen this season is going to be seen in light of that, and we're just kind of going in without excitement. But positive for me, kind of pulling back and almost doing like a meta thing or whatever. Like, I have no idea what's going to happen. I knew Lewis was going to be a disaster. We all knew that Ricky was going to be there just to get fired. We knew Ventura was going to be terrible. Like, I got to go back to Ozzy for the last time we've hired someone. We knew exactly how it's going to play out. And being a White Sox fan, there's a lot of plotting certainty, and we take kind of comfort in that. But it's exciting to not actually have any idea what's going to happen. Every once in a while, somebody catches fire. This guy who's got passed over, maybe he's one of those guys you're like, how did no one hire this guy? Probably not, but maybe. I just don't know.
And hey, listen, the motivation. I mean, I heard on some podcasts where it's like an advantage that he helped plot how to beat the White Sox this year. And I mean, wow, that did seem to be a whopper of a leap. But I mean, there is something to maybe be said of, hey, the team I spent my life with didn't hire me, didn't want me. Okay, I'm going to, not that you should need motivation when you have one of these 30 jobs, but hey, any bit of motivation can help. Middle square to block anyone. I'm taking the guy who ran several blocks to get to this podcast. Is Dante Jones. Positive and negative, please, sir.
So positive is like, at the end of the day, we don't know, like people have said, we don't know what he's going to be yet. Like, it's different than knowing that we wasn't winning a championship with Tony La Russa, knowing that Ricky Renteria, as charismatic and lovable he was not it. Robin Ventura was Robin Ventura. He got beat up by a 43-year-old Nolan Ryan, so take that as far as we want. But we don't know now. So nice. That's nice. The negative is that we don't know now. We don't know, like, if this is the guy that's been groomed for this. Like, the other people we've talked about have been people that, like, every year again interviews. The Royals, like I said, Royals fans wanted him. The Royals did not want him as manager. So that's always something to think about too.
Yeah, I was going to say that your positive didn't really seem too exciting to me. So I like how you played that, Dante. And there has been a lot of, and listen, we're fans. We want the team to do well, in spite of what you think, front office. Hello, Rick. We want this team to do well, despite how critical we can be. The fact that we are falling over ourselves to try to find, hey, it wasn't Tony. I mean, that's really not the way these announcements were supposed to go. And just because it's been that way with the White Sox forever, it doesn't really make it any more acceptable in 2022. Allie Wesel, with Wi-Fi intact, please, a positive and a negative about this hiring.
Looping back to the podcast that we keep referencing, he did go on record and say that games are not, or pennants are not won in April, but they can be lost in April. And I just think, given the mindset that kind of was coming out of 2021 and 2022 of like, enjoy the ride, these games are just in April, I kind of appreciate that mindset coming to the South Side. I think the negative is just echoing everything else, like it's lackluster. Like it feels like a second choice, but I don't know if there's anything we can do to like help that. So
Yeah, that's really fair. I mean, that is absolutely fair. Super Joseph, positive and negative, please. I know I mean, probably this whole podcast you've been like reading the Wikipedia page and getting the trivia because you got to repeat the championship. So, I mean, I got you. You don't need to know Ozzy's number anymore. So learn Pedro's. Positive and negative, please.
I think, yeah, the main positive that comes to mind would be, I trust that he will not make some of the simple mistakes that LaRussa made, like obviously the 1 and 2 intentional walks, the batting Leori Garcia, who was struggling immensely, like third, like batting him early on in the lineup like several times, and of course like it was mentioned earlier like how he is bilingual and therefore it has a little bit of an advantage as far as connecting with players. I think they're just on the surface there's a lot to like on that front, as far as his sort of in-game management and his kind of attitude that he brings to the table. A negative would be, very unproven. And I feel like the overall process this time around, it kind of showed that like having the, detailed, managerial search, as opposed to letting, Jerry get to just decide, by himself, who he wanted next. It showed that having a more drawn out process where, there was more, attention to detail and, it shows that was a priority, at least to some degree, but I don't think, it doesn't really seem like they did it completely correctly. It showed that they tried. They gave it a try, but at the end of the day, based on the kind of the description that Rick Hahn gave at that infamous October 3rd press conference, Grifol isn't quite a match as far as what Hahn said that they were prioritizing at that time.
Yeah. Okay, Melissa, wind this round up with a positive and negative about this hiring.
So in my cyber stalking of Pedro today, because that's what I do when I don't know something and I get really anxious, I try to Google and look at as much information as I can. I think a big positive for me was that what players had to say about him, and that players really seemed to be motivated by him and like his approach. And I think that this clubhouse definitely needs somebody like that, somebody who can connect with players, motivate them, get them to buy into whatever the manager is selling, because I think that our players did not buy into what Tony was selling. I think they may have liked him and respected him, but I don't think that they were sold on his approach to actually being in game and playing the game. So that is my positive. My negative is I feel like this does nothing to make our organization look good as far as like standing in the league, or from an outsider's perspective, it's like, well, those bottom feeder White Sox, guess what? They got the Royals throw off. Like, how does that look for players who are in free agency or looking to come here? Like, are they gonna want to come here and be a part of so much unknown? I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good point. I've made the joke today with all of you that the White Sox are sort of officially an international league team now. And I mean, that might have been the case before, before the process, and might have spoken to who they could even get to talk to. We're assuming Joe Espada's like got this like Houston thing lined up. Hey, ain't looking like they're going to win the World Series, and Dusty's going to get to just ride off in the sunset. But either way, we speculate. Well, it can't because he doesn't want the job. It's got to be because he's going to get that Houston job. He's got a cushy deal there. Well, I don't know. He might have just not wanted this job. I got 3 speed rounds here. We got plenty of time, so it doesn't have to be speed. So, slow down. It's cool. Speak clearly. Number 1 is I mean, this is all simple stuff, but essay it if you want. I don't care. I'll listen. I'll nod my head. Melissa, going to go right back to you and start this up. Do you like this move?
No,
Okay.
no, I don't think so. I'm meh on it, and I'm certainly going to try to be open-minded. I
Mhm.
keep telling myself that I'm going to try to be open-minded about it, but I just don't think this does anything to make us significantly better than we were last year.
Okay. Joe Resis, at least at some time, basting of positivity. Do you like this move?
If I'm forced to give either a yes or a no, I will give a yes on this one. Although I am very much on the fence on it right now.
Okay. All right. We're going to give you a 51% yes, but it does have to be yes or no.
Yes,
It's a black
it
and
is
white
a
pod.
yes
There is
then.
no shades of gray in this podcast. No way. You wear what I tell you to wear. You drink the hard liquor I tell you to drink in the green room. This is the way it works. Allie Wesel, yes or no? You dig this move?
On the surface, yes, but with the notion that there are still a lot of deep buried issues with this front office that cannot be masked by a good managerial hire. So
What a bad one. We found out.
I think this is a really strong Band-Aid over a gaping wound.
Okay. Okay. Again, that's why you're number one on my podcast. I'm sorry, everybody. I gotta tell it like it is. I'm eternally young in spirit and appearance, and plus Band-Aid on a gaping wound. Allie, that's why we pay you the big bucks. Oh, that's right. I got to pay you sometime. Yeah, I meant to mention. God dang it, Tommy! All this free Believe promotion we've been giving, man. Those people should give us one freaking penny. They never did.
No.
Even if your family made up half our listeners. God damn it. All right. Dante Jones. Okay, really, listen. It's a simple question. Like this move, yes or no?
No, I'm not a fan of it because at the end of the day, you pick the rules like leftovers. I don't like getting something from a team that was worse than us. Like, we were mediocre and the rules was just bad. And even Bobby Wood Jr. isn't really a rookie of the year candidate. The rules gained nothing this year. And you decide, let's take from the team to gain nothing.
Yeah. All right. Fair answer. Brian O'Neill, yes or no? You like this move?
Yes, and I'm going to finish from what Dante said. If the Royals fuck something up, maybe it's because they're idiots.
Yeah.
The Royals are a pretty dumb organization too, so maybe we'll benefit from someone else being dumb.
That really there is that strange double negative aspect of this where it's maybe if they are rejecting it, that's a good thing and we should be scooping it up. But yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry, I cut you off.
No. Yeah, I mean, it could definitely go either way. Maybe if the Royals saw something we didn't, but so I'm going to say short answer no, but long answer sure.
Yeah. Isn't it funny that the White Sox took so much crap, deservedly so, for hiring Tony La Russa? And it's Kansas City hired Mike Matheny and employed him for a number of years. Now we know hiring him over Pedro Grifol and who knows how many others were dying to come to Kansas City. And it's that's sort of a story that never got played. But then at Chicago, we got a target on our backs. Tommy Barbee, do you like this move?
No, and I'm frankly disappointed that all of you are trying to make this positive because I swear to you, if we weren't,
no.
I know, but I mean, it's just come on. If we didn't name names and you talked about, oh, he's great with the players, he's bilingual. The Sox had that with Ricky Renteria. We're just going through the same stuff. It's just a new name. And I'm glad that he's great with the players. I hope he's a great communicator. Surely it can't be any worse than it has been. But no, it's just we're back to recycling the same ideologies. And, I mentioned it before, but with the White Sox managerial hire, it's just oh, we need fire. Oh, that's too much fire. We need somebody that's calm, cool, and chill. All right, that's too calm. All right, we need fire. And it's just find something. And it's because to me, the Sox have never really had a clear identity as an organization, that they've never found any sort of leadership role that makes sense. But just I can't get excited about this. No, it's not as terrible as it could have been, but I can't pretend that it's anything other than just like, it's not a good move. It's just not.
Tommy, my first boss at my first writing job I ever had, certainly not an interesting, exciting, creative job like this wonderful thing I have with all of you, said, Brett, be witty, but not too witty. And so it speaks to a little bit about, what you're saying here about this. We really don't know if we're coming or going. Pedro Grifol is Ricky Renneria with a little bit bigger helping of metrics and a little bit smaller helping of culinary skill. Basically the same guy, let's face it. Jordan Haas, please, yes or no?
I'm gonna be the most positive one here and say 100% yes.
Whoa.
I'm known to be the most positive because you know what? It could be worse. It could.
Why is that the motto of
Yes,
White
why
Sox
do we accept
fandom? I
this?
don't understand.
Because you know
that.
what?
Because it's the White Sox. It's
giving-
Stockholm.
I don't give any of the front office the benefit of the doubt. I've never met this guy. I've never seen him coach, or I've never cared to see him coach. But you know what? I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt because if I was trying to be overly fun. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt because from other things I've read, that I don't think it's a sense that he is the Royals scraps. He is who the Royals wanted, but they wanted to do but they wanted to do what we were doing and hire someone from outside the organization. And if he was the guy, I mean, he's the guy the Royals wanted. If he wasn't outside of their, if he was outside of their, well, if they weren't hiring outside of their organization, that's not that great of a sign. But I mean, you never know. I mean, sometimes it's like a chemistry thing where he could be bad with the Royals players because he doesn't connect with them on the same level he would as the White Sox players or players from another team. I think there's a chemistry there that we have yet to see because he hasn't coached the fucking team yet.
Yeah.
I don't think I want to get negative on the guy because I think as much as the I don't know. I don't know. I'm trying to be positive, but this is going nowhere.
What White Sox, we know you're listening. We give you freebies all the time. Jordan has just provided you your pocket schedule title, White Sox Baseball 2023. It could have been worse. So, okay, this round should be a little quicker. What I need to know, honestly, we're going to reverse this. So Jordan, right back to you. Wash yourself of that positivity because was Pedro Grifol the first choice of the White Sox?
Oh, fuck no.
Okay. Tommy.
No, not even their second choice.
Okay. Hazard a guess at what choice he was?
I would probably say third or fourth.
Okay, third or fourth. Still not bad. I mean, really, that's pretty good.
All things considered for the White Sox, that's true. But I think he's probably like their third or fourth choice.
Okay, Brian, first choice?
God, no.
Okay. All right. We seem that it's a wave.
If it
Dante.
was,
No, not at all. Like, no, not
Okay.
first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. Like, that man was the guy they just chose because we can control him the best. Like,
Okay.
hell no.
That's fair. That's fair. Okay, contrarians in the house. Allie, first choice?
Okay, this is what I think happened. I think Rick Hahn had a list of really good candidates that were risks, and I think he had another list of safe choices. And so I think Pedro is on the list at the top of safe choices.
Okay.
He's nowhere to be seen on the risk list.
Okay.
So like Joe Espada, Carlos Mendoza, all those people that got thrown around there, that those were everyone that Rick wanted to interview just to see like maybe we could go get them. But like he always had this in his back pocket because if you recall, Grifol was on the list like at the very beginning, like Joe Espada, Ron Washington, Pedro Grifol, like those were the first three candidates that got thrown out there. So I think like he's always been on a list, and I think he was just like the safe choice that they knew they could go back to.
Okay.
And I do want to loop back, sorry, just really quick as a side note, like Jordan, like we talked about like Pedro being like the scraps or whatever, like Pedro did interview for the 2019 position before Mike Matheny got hired. And then he was interviewed again, and they just really wanted to cut ties with like current situation. But there is also rumor that he interviewed for the Miami Marlins spot. So like, I do think like he definitely was making a push for a managerial position. Like, I don't think he like was just like this random candidate. We're just like a random candidate bench coach. We're just like pulling off the side of the street.
So 0 for 4, 0 for 5, and now
Yeah,
we hired him.
yeah,
Okay,
for
Chicago
sure,
White
for sure.
Sox baseball
still.
2023 safe choices. Very nice, Allie. Thank you. That's another free one. White Sox, feel free to use it. Joe Resis, first choice, Pedro?
Certainly not at the beginning of the offseason. He was not their first choice. I mean, I could maybe believe that Rick Hahn was super sold after being blown away by him at the interview or whatever the phrasing was on the report.
Yeah.
That they really liked his interview. Which I mean, if they were super impressed by it, I'm not sure how much weight their opinion really carries. Like, I don't really know if that means a lot to me, but yeah, I don't know. Yeah, certainly wasn't the first choice though at the beginning of the offseason.
So Joe answers yes, first choice for today. All right, Melissa, first choice, the Chicago White Sox.
List of 10 people they interviewed. Ozzy is number 10. Pedro Grifol was number 9.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
how I think it went down. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I just saw something a little while ago that he was in June in consideration for the Florida State University manager. So, you know, digging deep.
That bodes well.
Josh,
Yeah. Hey, he's got Florida bona fides, man. He was Florida's like player of the year in high
Yep.
school and went to school there and born in Miami, whatever. Okay, yeah, Florida State. That bodes well, Tommy. Good call. All right. Let's make this an order-free final speed round. So just blurt out as you wish, and we'll make sure to get to everyone. My final question is to my esteemed panel of Southside Sox writers, podcasters. Well, Adrian's not here, so not illustrators, but all you personalities, please tell me, heading now, knowing what we have at manager and not knowing anything about the offseason and knowing the disasters that still await us in terms of free agent pickups, bullpen, fortification, lineup holes. I need to know right now, coming out of this news, whether you are feeling more or less excited about the 2023 season, because ultimately, although we can say managers don't matter, who cares? I don't remember what 3 managers ago was. Who was that guy? Oh, that's right. He was a 4-star general, but I still can't remember his name. Okay. There's some juice here. That's probably why Ozzy was in the picture at all, because, hey, a manager can be a personality that draws fans in, hopefully along with some success and create excitement. That said, are you more or less excited about the 2023 season? Anybody, take it away.
Then as compared to what?
Go ahead.
Yeah, Brett, as compared to what? Like more excited than last year? Because I think I'm less excited than last year, but more excited than 2021.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess you can make this a more complicated question than it is, because I don't really know what my intent is. But I would say just from like yesterday before knowing the manager, and everything else is the same, right? It's not like Jose Abreu's coming back for sure or not coming back for sure because of this hire. Just maybe from the moment before we knew who the manager was, although I guess it's still not official, to now who we know who the manager is, sort of, more or less excited.
Definitely more excited then.
Okay.
Because I would not be excited for Ozzy because I don't want to watch a train wreck. This is at least interesting because it's like I didn't have expectations going into this season, but I have different not having expectations going into this season, the next season, because I'm like, yeah, it's gonna be different in a good way, but I still don't have expectations for it outside of nothing.
Okay. So to summarize, in the category of the house was damaged by fire, but it didn't burn down, and I can maybe spend the night in it tonight. You're okay with this. That's cool. All right. More or less excited. Anyone else?
Slightly more excited because it's not Ozzy, which in my like deepest heart of hearts, I didn't not think it was gonna be Ozzy, but still, it's not Ozzy, so I'll take that positive. But also, I just want to get to a point where we're playing baseball. Because, like, I'm tired of all this. Go do the free agency things. Go sign some people for once, and then I'll let it be known if I'm actually excited. Like, go bring Jacob DeGrom or Aaron Judge or something big instead of Yasmani Grandal for 4 years, 74 million. Give me like a stupidly fat deal that we have never seen before by a Chicago sports team.
Dante, I
It's
didn't
not
think
gonna
I had
happen,
to,
but
I didn't think I had to tell you specifically during the break, don't go back to the green room and take too much Kool-Aid. And I think you have. Well, listen, bless you for the positive thinking, but careful what you ask for. All right, other thoughts? More so far, I think that's 2 more positives. Come on, cynics.
I haven't renewed my season tickets yet, so that would be a no.
Yeah, exactly. That's what counts. And believe me, Jerry just heard you there. Jerry said, huh? What? The bat signal just went up. They're coming after you. Sending them out to Wisconsin.
Like this move again, like I just feel very average about it. Like I feel good that he's a good guy. I have yet to see him manage, so like I can't form an opinion, and like until I see baseball played and I feel better about the style of baseball that's being played, like I don't have an opinion of what the 2023 season is going to be. And based on like the bad taste I still have from last year, like I don't plan on like, renewing a package until I'm like comfortable saying that like there's going to be a good brand of baseball.
Yeah, Allie, this has been a rough run for you. 2021, you're like, okay, you feel like fully submerged and you're into it. So then 2022, you're like, oh my God, I cannot wait. This is like my victory lap. I mean, thank you for being here. Thank you for keeping the chin up. Thank you for being such a badass on Southside Sox, because the White Sox don't deserve you. You hear that, White Sox? They don't. Allie Wesel.
It's an emotional roller
deserve her.
coaster that I wish that I could just sometimes.
Another pocket schedule title. Okay, Tommy Barbee, please, more or less excited for the season?
I just don't know how you can be more excited, because this just means more Rick Hahn. And what has Rick Hahn done besides disappoint you? Nothing. It's a world of hurt. That's all that we're entering into. There's no way I can think anyone can be more excited about the White Sox unless you are a person that puts that much value in stock in a manager. But it's still the same guy pulling the strings. It's still going to be the same guy getting the seats at the wrong tables all off season, and it's rinse and repeat. And I'm ready for this ride to be over and for all of the front office to be gone, and we can start all over again. We need like a Bulls level rehashing of the organization.
Yeah, I don't mean to get personal. It's just a joke. Rick Hahn is a friend of mine, was a friend of mine, whatever, but I'm not sure Rick Hahn's family wants 2 helpings of Rick Hahn. So we do not need more Rick Hahn. And you nailed it, Tommy. We get more Rick Hahn in 2023. Brian, feeling better, feeling worse?
I'm going to upset Tommy by setting the bar ridiculously low. I'm more excited. I thought the manager hire is going to be stepping off a cliff and we are going to be like Wile E. Coyote and like just look down and plunge. But now it's kind of like that scene in Last Crusade where Indy's stepping over the leap from the lion's breath or whatever. And the bridge is there. I don't actually know if the bridge is going to be there or not, but there's a chance it is, and we might not actually just plummet. So there's your summit. We might not plummet off the cliff to our doom.
Yeah, sometimes it's just the excitement of the ride, and we don't know if we're going to die. That toboggan could hit the tree, but it might not, and we might want to run up the hill and sled again. Oh gosh, White Sox! Look what you reduced us to, White Sox. Bless you, team that we all love. Joe Resis, I don't think you have shouted out whether you are more or less excited about 2023.
Slightly more excited with this managerial choice, because as mentioned last podcast, I really thought they were just gonna lazily pick Ozzy, and with this I'll increase my win projection for the White Sox from 77 to 79 probably. They'll win 79 games instead of the 77 they would have had with Ozzy. So I don't know. Rick Hahn kind of has his work cut out for him, and rounding out an very mediocre team that has a few great players but not much else is something that Rick Hahn really has not been able to do. So yeah, not much good, but I will say I am more excited.
What are we even doing this for?
A 2-war manager though is pretty good. I'll give you that.
79
there's your silver lining.
Jesus,
White Sox are still under 500,
Man,
but we got a 2-war manager.
Seriously reevaluating my life. Melissa, more excited or less excited?
Do you really need to ask Brett?
I don't, but give it to me.
No, I'm less excited. Like I would have been more excited had like we picked like a legit candidate, and then I would have kind of gone into the season with some optimism. But it's just, yeah, like Tommy said, it's just more Rick Hahn. So this is not anything for me to be excited about. I, like Allie, I'm not renewing my season tickets. It's not, other than the excitement of a new season, which is just being a diehard fan, you get excited about the possibilities, but that's completely separate than being excited specifically about this hire and where it makes us any better than we were. Maybe 2 wins, Joe, I don't know, but I'm not even that optimistic that it makes us 2 wins better.
Alert, Chairman, alert. This is 3 people in a 8-person podcast not renewing their season tickets. Maybe you should pay attention instead of just calling it some sort of Yahoo fan blog, for God's sake. Not literally.
Sherry's
Yahoo.
going to hire Ozzy now.
Oh, yeah, make it 4 people.
We did it.
My tickets are not, my season tickets are not getting renewed either. They can fuck off.
Yep. So 3 of 8, and I'm guessing that's 3 of 3 who are actually season ticket holders. And yeah, to think about the fact that, I mean, again, not to speak for Brian or Joe or anybody else or Jordan, mildly positive coming out of this, but I mean, a lot of the positivity comes from, well, we were about to jump off a cliff and we haven't, at least yet. We're still alive. So hooray. I mean, really just a few days ago for the Sox of Us podcast, we were deadlocked. And whether Ozzy would be hired, we really thought generally he was going to be hired. So I guess, hey, onward and upward into November, December, and whatever the hell else is going to happen before the opening day begins. Yes,
the 2022 season was like, I thought I was being punked the whole time. So like Grifol being hired is like one of those things where like, I feel like I'm going to be punked again, but like in a good way.
Okay.
Like, I just feel like it's like this like funny joke that just continues where I'm like, maybe good things can happen to us, but like then just being extremely disappointed knowing that like that's not going to happen.
They missed tricks or treats by 1 day. Can you believe it? All right, I think it's about time to wind up. This went longer than I thought, but I really thought we were going to be super efficient with this, and I should know better. Soxivus or not, we got things to say. White Sox, listen, bring back Sox Fest for God's sake. Use your heads. The manager choice has been made. Just do your best from here. Whatever. I'm not even sure I care. I've already admitted I don't even know what I'm doing this anymore. Hey, you want to start up a White Sox podcast, Tommy, called Believe in White? Oh, sorry. It's been taken from us already. Oh, well, that didn't pay any better than this one. Okay, well, hey, listen, on behalf of Melissa Sage-Bollenbach, Super Joseph Resis, representing Indianapolis, Indiana, it's Allie Wesel. Oh, a little bit further north of that, Dante Jones. Thank you for the big hustle to become an important part of this podcast number, 128. Brian O'Neill, first-time participant, soon to be returning champion. Thank you for joining us. Father Soxivus, see you in a few days. You got no choice. And Jordan Haas, of course, bringing your positivity to this podcast and this White Sox decision. Thanks, everybody, as always, for listening, reading, watching, all that stuff. Without you, we wouldn't be here. And maybe you should really think about supporting us, because then maybe we don't have to be here. I keep saying it. Anyway, we'll be back sooner than you are ready for us, because Sox of Us worst games of the year. It's coming up on Sunday. Take care.